The weather has really warmed up, and as you can see over my shoulder, bright blue skies. But what that means is that there's lots of melting that is taking place. My fear is that I'm going to wind up in the same situation that I was in last year. Last year, I basically had a lake in front of the cabin. Now, granted, I did get a lot more snow the previous winter than I did this one, but nonetheless, I'm still afraid that by the looks of things, I'm going to wind up with another lake in the same boat, so to speak. Last year, the water had nowhere to go. And while I did dig some trenches to help move the water along and get it channeled out to where I needed it to go, I actually wound up buying a sump pump and pumping the water out because it just wasn't moving fast enough. And the longer it stood upon the ground, the softer the ground became. It was so saturated that the few times that I had parked in front of the cabin and then tried to drive over it, my tires were just sinking in. I was spewing mud everywhere. It was such a mess. And it wasn't just in front of the cabin either. It was also in front of the bunkhouse that was flooded. And the driveway itself had some ruts in it that were collecting water, making it rather treacherous to drive across the driveway. So all of this footage that you're seeing here is from this same time last year. And it was such a mess. In fact, I actually wound up getting stuck in the mud at one point. Oh, I sure hope that doesn't happen again this year. Last year was the first year that I actually had somebody come out and clear all the snow from in front of the cabin. And Two Bears had told me that the flooding I experienced at that point was because by having the snow cleared all winter long, it meant that the ground was able to freeze. And as the snow on top melted, the ground was still frozen underneath, meaning that the snow had nowhere to go. But this year, the difference is that after I had the trees removed from this part of the property, I was able to push the snow back further. And I also had the driveway, or at least the parking pad, graded this past summer, thanks to another contractor who came out and did some work for me with a bulldozer in preparation of putting down gravel and fixing the flooding situation that I have going on. And in order to prevent some of the flooding that I had going on last year, I've already started to dig some trenches to help channel that water away from where I park. So hopefully I don't get stuck in the mud. But this poor guy, he is not feeling well. And so he and I are going to head off into town, and I'm going to take him to the vets. Matter? Huh? You're not feeling good? You're not? Okay. I'm gonna take you to the doctor. Yeah. Yeah, the same doctor that gives you shots. But you gotta go. doctor hurt you? Huh? He did? What'd the doctor do to you? He stuck something in your hiney? Did it hurt? Yeah. I promise you, no more doctor. We'll just have to go to Costco now. Can you be? Yeah? Okay, we'll go to Costco. So, as you can see, I did manage to make my way to Costco. I also went to New Sagaya and picked up a couple of things at Fred Meyers that I couldn't get at Costco or New Sagaya. But I must have had a craving for starch because I rarely eat bread. But as you look in front of me, I've got a whole selection of breads and pastries that I have already actually started munching on. So it's been a few days since I have purchased all these groceries, but some things that you don't see here are I picked up a 24 pack of toilet paper from Costco, a 3-pack of ribeyes, a 4-pack of pork chops, a 5-pound bag of crawfish, and then a 3-pound bag of large prawns. And some egg roll wrappers that I don't have out here. And I think that's everything that I picked up. So I did get quite a bit of fresh produce. I've been craving fresh produce for a while, so glad to have this. And some canned goods. I didn't pick up a whole lot of canned goods, but as you can see, as I mentioned, a lot of bread, some pasta, and some fresh cream. Everything that you see here, plus the meats that I mentioned, cost me just under $700. And that seems a bit astounding, especially when you think about that, looking at what's laid out in front of you isn't really enough to carry an average person through more than a few weeks, maybe 2 weeks only. But luckily for me, I'm just using these items to fill gaps in my pantry. Gaps in the larder, if you will. I do keep a fully stocked pantry of canned goods, fruit, beans, some canned meats, and I have 4 fully stocked chest freezers. In fact, I would need to clean them out in order to put away this bread because we all know bread isn't going to last, and so it needs to store in the freezer. Now, I typically only go to the store twice a year to do grocery hauls. I go in the spring and I go again in the fall. So as I mentioned, this is only to fill in areas where I have depleted some items or am running low on items. So these items will last me, plus what I have in the pantry and the freezers, until next fall. So hopefully 6 months before I really need to pick up anything at the grocery store again. Now, granted, I might pick up some additional fresh produce and fresh fruit over the summer months, but I wind up freezing a lot of this that you see here in front of you. So I need to get all of this put away, but before I do that, enjoy this a little bit while I start putting this stuff away.
Are you tired of your cramped and damp icebox? Do you know what is lurking in the dampness? Bacteria and mold. And do you know what ingesting bacteria and mold can do to you? It can kill you. You heard me right. It can kill you. That is why every modern home is incomplete without a Bohn Syphon refrigerator. The food compartment walls are lined with genuine, white vitreous enamel porcelain which will not crack, discolor or peel off, nor corners or crevices to hold impurities. The Bohn Syphon system absolutely prevents stagnation, keeps up a constant, vigorous circulation of fresh air around the ice, and in this way produces a temperature 8 degrees colder than in any other refrigerator, and causes the condensation of all the impurity-laden moisture from the provision chamber, which is then siphoned away through the easy-to-clean drain pipe. Why even milk and onions can be kept in the same compartment without contamination. That phrase, dry as a bone, is surely a good one, as the walls and shelves are never the least bit moist. The family's health actually depends upon the perfect condition of foodstuffs, and the refrigerator must be the protector. Reducing food waste, preserving ice and saving lives and money. Quality is paramount in a Bohn Syphon refrigerator and the home in which it is used.
This icebox that I had built myself, it was a replica icebox. I went ahead and just outfitted it to act as a traditional icebox, insulating it with 2 inches of foam on all sides, lining it with some washable pill and stick wallpaper, and putting some bins in there so that I could store goods in there. Appeared to be working just fine. I really didn't have any issues with this icebox. However, because the ice sat on top of the food, when the ice would melt, that means that all that melting water or condensation off of that melting ice would drip down over the food stores that were in the icebox. And that worried me because there's no air circulation in there. So there was nothing to dry that food out. And if I was storing stuff in plastic, that meant that all the condensation in the plastic and the excess water dripping down on top of it meant that there could be some mold or some bacteria growing in there. The Bohn Syphon refrigerator was first patented in the late 1800s, but by the early 20th century, they began to make some pretty fantastical claims that they could prevent certain diseases such as dysentery and cholera. Those I can believe, but they also claimed that they could prevent typhoid. Well, if you don't know what typhoid fever is, it's actually a disease that's passed along through fecal matter. So it can't come from just condensation or standing water, especially in a refrigerator, unless that standing water or food that's contained within the refrigerator has come in contact with said fecal matter. So the refrigerator itself couldn't prevent it, but cleanliness and proper hygiene and sanitation definitely could. But nonetheless, it was enough to make me concerned reading their claims about preventing these certain diseases to not want to use my old icebox anymore. It did a great job of keeping everything cold enough. I didn't really have a problem with anything freezing, and it stored the ice for, in the winter months, the ice was staying in there anywhere for 24 to 72 hours, depending upon how cold it was outside. Again, I don't keep my cabin real warm, so that wasn't an issue. But the one thing that I mentioned a second ago was that there was no air circulation in there. It also became quite a pain to find anything in this little tiny ice box. For just one person, anytime I had produce in here, it meant that I was, rummaging through this tiny little compartment trying to find what I was looking for. Condiments take up a lot of space, and you'd be surprised how many condiments one person actually uses. I know that I personally was using a lot. Plus, I like a lot of jams and jellies, so that was taking up a lot of space in there as well. The new refrigerator my son actually bought for me, and this safety benefit of this is that all of the ice is stored in a separate chamber, so it doesn't ever come into contact with the food. And there's a grate here beneath the ice that then drains into a siphon, hence the name Bohn Syphon, and it drains then down into a pan that I have stored underneath the refrigerator. This is the only part that is zinc lined, but everything else has a porcelain enamel on it. And I have had this going now for the past few days, as I mentioned, and everything in here is staying nice and cold. I've had no issues with it. In fact, the ice that's in here, this ice has been in here now, I got to think about that, 3.5 days, and it is still, doing really, really well. You can't see the ice in my hand, but, here's a bag, because I had a bunch of ice that I brought the groceries home in, and you can see it's starting to melt a bit. But this is 3.5 days in here, plus these ice blocks that I have. And it's doing great. I have no issues with this whatsoever. And if the power goes out, I don't have to worry about anything spoiling in here because there's no electricity. I couldn't ask for a better deal. What a wonderful modern world we live in. So while your icebox, refrigerator, what have you, will probably only last a few years before you're having to replace it, this one's already lived way longer than I have and will outlive me, guaranteed. So you might be asking, well, what's going to happen to the old icebox now that you have the new refrigerator? Well, not to worry, because this is actually what's going to be used for my root crop storage. I know that I had talked about building something downstairs. As you might know, I store all of my root crops in damp sand. Potatoes I wrap up in brown paper bags, and then they have been getting stored this year in the bottom of this ice box in a separate container away from any of the ice. And they stored just fine over the course of the winter. In fact, I've eaten all but just a few of them. So no issues with them. They've not actually gone soft. I didn't have anything freeze in there, nor has anything started to grow eyes on it. So that's good. But this will stay cool in this corner and completely dark. And by storing it in damp sand, the moisture will regulate a little bit better in there than it does in my current situation, because I've not actually been able to store my root crops in the cellar. Let's head down there and I'll explain why. I've talked before about how I want to turn this area of the root cellar into storage for my canned goods and also those root vegetables that I talked about by building some sand bins down here to store those vegetables in. But what I found is that it's too cold down here. Unless I provide a way of heating this cellar, there is no way that I could store any of those things down here. I put some jars down here about a month ago, and within a couple of days, everything down here had froze. It didn't matter whether it was a pint size or a quart size jar, the water froze. And I just can't take that risk with having canned goods down here or my root crops and losing them to the cold. So with that being said, I think what I'm going to do is I'm still going to use this area for food storage, but it'll be for all of my dry food stores that I store in mason jars. That way I don't have to worry about anything freezing. Dry goods can freeze without an issue. As long as there's no moisture in there, you shouldn't have any issues with that. So this will keep the dry goods dark, also cooler, so they'll last longer. And then I'll store my canned goods upstairs. And like I said, I'll store those root crops in the old ice box. So turns out that Kenai has a urinary tract infection. So he is now on a course of antibiotics, and I have switched up his diet. And he also is taking some supplements in addition to all of that. So he's getting a couple cranberry capsules and some apple cider vinegar gummies every day. One of these and a couple of these every day. He doesn't mind them. I sprinkle the cranberry directly over his food and he eats it right up, which I was surprised because I thought for sure that it would change the flavor and then he wouldn't like it, but no issues there. So hopefully he'll be on the mend soon. He definitely did not like being at the vet's though. He was not happy with it.
You need a cookie because you ate your dinner?
But they did an ultrasound on him and ran a urinalysis and did some blood work. And they said as far as his blood work is concerned, you would never know that he was an older dog. You know, they say that by the look of his blood work, you would think that he was just a young pup. So all of that checked out good, which I was happy to see. Everything else looked good, they said. So clean bill of health other than the urinary tract infection. And that they said is typically caused by having low stomach acid, hence the apple cider vinegar. And they said that also it's caused by magnesium ammonium phosphate in dog food, which I checked his dog food and I didn't see a high level of that, or I didn't see that at all actually on the ingredients, nor on the dog biscuits that he eats. So I'm not sure exactly what caused it, but nonetheless, he does seem to be feeling a little bit better. Like I said, it's been a couple of days since we were first at the veterinarian's office, and hopefully in a matter of no time at all, he'll be completely on the mend. So, poor little guy though. I feel bad for him anytime he doesn't feel well, which isn't very often, luckily. What are we gonna do for dinner, Nikki? What do you want? Do you want burritos? You like burritos? I like burritos. We do have some green chili in the freezer. What, you don't like green chili? How about gumbo? I have some shrimp and some leftover chicken. Gumbo? Okay, gumbo it is. Gumbo is one of my favorite meals. I probably eat this more than I eat steak, and steak is my actual favorite meal, but we all know steak is expensive. And gumbo is a great way for me to use up some leftovers. For example, gumbo traditionally has a variety of meats in it. So here I have some of the Louisiana hot links that I showed in the grocery haul. I have some leftover shrimp and some leftover chicken. So great way to use those up. Those are all traditional meats that would go into a gumbo. And if you're not familiar with what gumbo is, it is actually, think of it kind of like a soup that's served over a bit of rice. It's very saucy, where jambalaya is a bit thicker and the rice is actually cooked into the meal as opposed to the meal being served over rice. I'm going to apologize right off the bat to anybody who is from the South, especially anybody from New Orleans or Louisiana in general, or anybody who's familiar with gumbo, because as I proceed, you're going to begin to realize that I'm not doing this by the book. So I'm just going to start by chopping up some vegetables here. I'm going to chop up some green pepper and celery and leeks. And then I'm just going to saute all of those in a little bit of butter and then proceed with adding in the rest of my ingredients. Now, traditionally, gumbo would be made with onion as opposed to leeks, but I actually am allergic to onions. It's not so much the onion that I'm allergic to, but it is the sulfides within onions. So onions, garlic, even leeks and chives have the sulfides, but leeks have less sulfide compounds than onions do. And so I traditionally cook with these or green onions. Once they become a spring onion though, they are too rich in sulfides for me and I will have an allergic reaction. Now I'm just gonna cook these until they're tender. So about 5 minutes is all it'll take for those leeks and celery to become translucent and the green peppers to soften up a bit. Once that's done, then I'm going to add in my other ingredients. So to that, I'm going to add in my variety of meats. Again, Louisiana hot links, which I've just cut into 1/2 inch rounds, some shredded chicken, and I'm gonna dice up this pre-cooked shrimp. I just want that to heat through. So all of this stuff is pre-cooked, so it's gonna go in last. But I'm also gonna add in 1 can of drained red kidney beans, about a teaspoon of chicken bouillon, some frozen okra. If you have fresh okra, way better, but I only have frozen available to me here. And then I'm going to be adding in a little bit of cayenne pepper. I like it hot, so if you're not somebody who likes it hot, you can either leave this out or just add in very little. But I'm going to add in some cayenne, some smoked paprika, oregano, and thyme. And then lots of ground pepper and some salt. And then I'm just going to go ahead and serve this over some rice. Well, that's it right there. A piping hot bowl of gumbo on a day like this. It is still warm. Actually, now that I look outside, believe it or not, it just started to snow. I hope it doesn't stick around. Anyhow, I appreciate you sticking around, and I hope that you'll stick around for some outtakes as well. Until next time, please stay safe and take care, and I'll see you on the next one. All right, Kenai, let's go enjoy this gumbo. Come on. Let's go. Let me get a better view of this. If you're not familiar with, Kenai, I think it's time you start pulling your weight around here. Stop laying on the bed, get up, and go do those dishes. Did you hear me? Now. You're going to make a liar out of me. Come on. Let's eat. Come on. I know this is not normally where we eat. I know. It's okay, though. We can eat here, too. Oh, we got to go eat upstairs? Yeah. Customs. All right, let's go. All the way. Okay, you want this? Okay, you can eat. Go ahead. It's okay. You can eat. Go ahead, Mickey. Dude, come on. You know you're being recorded. Come on. Let's eat. Eat your food. I don't want to eat it. You eat it. Move your butt. You're blocking the camera. Are you camera shy? You are. Come on. Eat. Hey, that's a good boy. Nope, eat your food. Camera's off. I lied. Just eat. Whether you've contributed through a YouTube membership, Patreon, PayPal, or you've donated to the channel in other ways, your support means a lot to me. So with that being said, that concludes today's video. I want to thank you for watching and joining me today. As always, stay safe and take care until the next time, and I'll see you then.